Brit-Am, Hebrew awareness. We search for the lost 10 tribes. We find them amongst Western peoples. There may be members of the lost 10 tribes elsewhere, but they are concentrated. They give expression to who they are, to their destiny according to the Bible, through their biblical characteristics that we can find and the Bible speaks about. We find these nations today to be concentrated amongst Western peoples. The Israelite nations are Canada, the USA, Ireland, UK, Iceland, Denmark, Norway, Sweden, Finland, Netherlands, Belgium, France, Switzerland, South Africa, Australia and New Zealand. That is where the lost 10 tribes are to be found in concentrated groups. And where they gave expression at some stage or another, to some degree or other, to the Israelite ancestry. We're not saying that every one of those areas is descended from the lost 10 tribes of Israel. It's obvious that in some areas they are not. In some places there might be a minority. But there were historical occasions when they did do so. They did express themselves, the Israelite ancestry, before the goal of Israelites that had been predetermined for them. Was to find other areas. You find areas of Edom. Edom was the twin brother of Jacob. And Edom was also destined to become a great nation and to make his mark in the world and to be in association with Joseph and the 10 tribes, for good and for bad. So we find Edomite areas, especially in Germany, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, Poland, Czechia, Austria, Southern Europe up to Turkey, Russia, and even China to some degree, and other areas. The Vilna Gaon, the great rabbi, divided, and others said that the world is in effect divided. The non-Israelite nations are in effect divided between two sections of Ishmael and Esau. Ishmael and Esau, they're also from the family of Abraham. And Ishmael usually is associated with Muslim nations, Arab nations, or nations, culture, somehow, some cultural and ethnic affinity with such areas. And we also had 70 nations. Had 70 nations, the sons of Abraham were 70. You go to Genesis chapter 10, you see a list of the nations, descendants of Noah. From the descendants of Noah come all the peoples of the earth, and altogether there are 70 of these peoples. And if you, today we have more than 70 nations in the world. You have about 190, 191, 192 members of the UN, of the United Nations, and possibly others. But a portion of these nations are actually half nations, like certain nations divide into two different sections and separate entities independent of each other. But concerning being descended from the descendants of Noah, they are Noah. In such a case, there are two portions of them. For instance, you have North and South Korea, and such an enumeration of North and South Korea will be considered one entity. So altogether you have 70 nations of the world, and you had 70 sons of Jacob. Jacob is also known as Israel. Abraham, Isaac and Jacob were the forefathers of the Israelite nation. Okay, went down to Egypt, and they are counted in Genesis 46 and also in Numbers 26. Those who come down to Egypt with Jacob are numbered, are listed, their names are given. And there are 70 of them. There are 70 clans. So according to this, according to Vilna Gaon and others, each of these 70 clans is parallel to a Gentile nation. To the 70 nations of the earth, each one of them is parallel to an Israelite nation, to an Israelite clan, tribal clan. And in the future, when the Israelites rule over the earth, this tribal clan, each tribal clan of Israelites will be associated with one of these Gentile nations. It will be similar, I assume. Sometimes you have such a thing as a concept as sister cities. You might have a city, say in the USA, is a sister city in Israel, or a sister city in India. And they will have cultural exchanges, and they will try and establish some type of connection between them. They will visit each other, and the rich side will help the other side which is less well off. So that's the concept, and the idea was one would help each other. So still in the end, when the end times, when the Israelites, all the children of Israel, both from Judah and from Joseph, rule over the earth, as they will do in the end times, the Messianic era, one of these 70 tribal clans will be parallel to a non-Israelite nation and will help it, or will direct it, or be associated with it, in principle. So that is a point worth noting. So in the connection to that, we also see now the breaking up of the earth into groups, the breaking up of the world into groups. As we said, we had those 10 tribes, the nations of those 10 tribes. We have the Edomite areas, we have the Ishmaelite areas, and those of Edom. And things are breaking up. Things are coming to a head at present more than they were in the past. For instance, now we have the war in Gaza, the war of Israel in Gaza. And I saw on the internet from an Arab production, he noticed, somewhat gleefully, is quite pleased about it, that all of the non-Israelite nations, or nearly all the non-Israelite nations have condemned Israel. And some of them very large demonstrations have taken place against Israel, even in places like Japan, China, Russia, where they are usually quite reserved. State of Israel now numbers about 9 million people, and 2 million of them are non-Jewish, and the rest are Jewish, or at least listed, associated with the Jews. Technically, not all of them are Jewish, but they are identify themselves as Jewish to some degree or other. So it is a very small, relatively very small, but it occupies the attention of all of the world, because it has an importance of its own. And people identify with it, or they identify against it. And all the earth is concerned with it. The United Nations now and again makes resolutions, condemnations against certain nations. So most of them are against the state of Israel. And all the problems that the world has all over the earth, statistically they consider the state of Israel is equal to all of them. And they speak about it, they speak about the state of Israel. And they speak against it usually. But now we are seeing that all of the non-Western nations, especially, are against the state of Israel. And we had the South Africans summoning Israel to the Hague, to the Court of Justice, International Justice in the Hague in Holland, the Netherlands. And they tried to attribute to Israel intentions of genocide, which were false. And but they were active in doing this. And now in the South African Parliament, a recent sitting, they were all banded together and they condemned the state of Israel and also condemned their white minority. They accused their white minority of identifying with the Jews in Israel. And at the same sitting, they threatened the white minority that if it doesn't give over its properties in Cape Town and elsewhere, blood would be spilt. In other words, they're threatening to kill them. So this is what we have. This is a phenomenon that Israel is a catalyst, one could say, a catalyst through which the things are coming to a head. Different groups are banding together around the state of Israel, and we will return to this because it's importance. And amongst the Israelite nations, the nations that we identified as descend from the 10 tribes of Israel, remember the 10 tribes of Israel, part of the northern section of Israel, the kingdom of Israel, and the kings Saul, David, and Solomon had a large area, much larger than the present state of Israel. They occupied also most of Syria, Jordan, parts of Turkey, and the other areas, all over the area. At the death of King Solomon, the Brit-Am became king, and in his era, under his reign, the 10 tribes separated and they set up their own king under Jeroboam, the son of Nebat, in the north. And their separate kingdom eventually was conquered by the Assyrians, taken into exile, and from there it later moved to the north, west, and it converged in the west. That's where we find it, and the Bible speaks of this. Also, history, archaeology, and other findings confirm it. So we have Western nations supporting Israel. Most of those Western nations are from Northern tribes. If they're not, they are Edomites, such as Germany, which might also have Israelites amongst its population. That is another point that we'll have to consider at some stage. At all events, that is what we have, and we should note that the earth is getting smaller. The earth is getting smaller. Russia and China are joining together and reaching out to Iran. India present has serious differences with China, but it is friendly with Russia, and it could also work together with China, or be taken over by China, or be in partnership with China at some stage. Even though India is also connected with Britain, is prepared to forget that connection. In 1998, the Russian FM Foreign Minister Evgeny Primakov proposed a strategic triangle between Russia, China, India, and Iran also expressed interest in joining it. Nothing came of it, but in a de facto sense, they formed one bloc. They formed one bloc as a vote in the UN and in other fields. And other countries, such as Venezuela, Nicaragua, North Korea, Cuba, and so on, have also joined this bloc of Russia, China, India, and Iran. And we have the USA, and the USA has its own string of alliances, and the USA has its own string of alliances, and to a degree it depends on the state of Israel to help preserve its position in the Eastern Mediterranean and to link up between the Indian and the Atlantic Oceans and the Mediterranean Oceans, through the Mediterranean to the Atlantic and the Pacific, and to the east of the Pacific, from Israel to the Indian Ocean, and from the Indian Ocean to the Pacific. So the USA needs Israel, and also if you look at a map, you have these blocks of nations. Also you have Turkey in the north. In effect, USA and Britain at some stage will need the state of Israel, will need to take over Syria, which has been seriously depopulated, and possibly Kurdistan, and to establish their own colony in that region, to balance the other nations that will try to close it out from world trade and other matters. So that is a possibility, and it seems to be a process that is taking place.